Hello, everybody. We are going to start indicator 29. And so I just wanted to make this video for you to hopefully make this go a little bit smoother. It is a lot of vocab, but I definitely think that it is something that you can tackle. And it's better than just giving you definitions to write or make a Quizlet or something like that. And we can go through and explain things. So I hope that you guys have the paper copy. And if you don't have the paper copy, it's totally okay. You can follow along and just write this down on your own notebook paper. That's totally fine. So we are working with samples and surveys because I will tell you in Algebra 2, and especially if you want to take my AP Stats class, these are vocab words that we use quite often, and we want to make sure that we know how to design a good survey so we can gather good data to make assumptions and predictions about things that will happen in the future. I want to say people use this in medicine all the time. They have to make sure that whenever they do medical studies that there's no bias, that they're assessing the right variables, and that there's nothing about the group that they choose to do the study on that could maybe tamper with the results a little bit. They use this all the time in court cases. They look at the statistics and predictions to decide whether or not they think that something's plausible, and we go from there. So there are two types of data, and this is the first thing that I want to share with you. The first type is called quantitative data. So whenever you see quantitative, hopefully you think of the word quantity. All right, so we're thinking of the word quantity. And with the word quantity, that means an amount. What's the amount? How many of things that we're keeping track of? It could be something with measurements. It could be something with counting things. So it's like, if you are, I know this is a really silly example, but the number of red M&Ms that you get in a pack, we're counting those numbers. So that would be one thing. All right, so this is data that is some form of measurement. So the result is a number. Let me get that to fit in there. And you guys can type or you can write. If you're doing it on the screen, you can type. Obviously, you guys are going to write if you're doing it on paper. But this is just data that is some sort of measurement, and the result is a number. All right, so the one way that we could do this, I don't ever wear mine anymore, but like a Fitbit, it collects steps per day, and that is a number. Like most people's goal is 10,000 steps, but the amount of steps per day would be a quantitative example. Another example, if you go to the doctor, they collect all kinds of data about you when you first get there. They get your body temperature, they get your height, they get your weight, they get your blood pressure. And what else do they take at the doctor? Oxygen levels. And you'll see O2 levels. And your O2 is a little subscript. I can do it here. So all of those things that the doctor, nurse, or medical assistant will collect from you at the doctor's office, those are all quantitative measurements, because body temperature is a number, your height is a number, your weight's a number, your blood pressure is some sort of number. I really don't know what the numbers of blood pressure mean. And then you have your O2. Now, qualitative is whenever your result is a description. So this is data that is some sort of description. All right, and so the result is not a number. So an example that you could collect, you could sort by color, you could sort by gender. We see that one a lot. You could sort by grade. And grade level, I know this one's kind of tricky. Some people tend to think that grade level is a quantitative measurement because it's, if you're a freshman, you are in ninth grade, and 9 is a number. But just because you're a ninth grader It doesn't make you like smaller than or less significant than someone in 12th grade. So those are just measurements. It's a category. It's not necessarily a measurement. Just because you're in 9th grade doesn't mean you're better than an 8th grader. You're not smarter than an 8th grader. You're not, there's nothing really between grade levels that change. The number doesn't make any significance on a value of anything. So a grade level is a qualitative measurement. And so we are going to go through some examples here. We are going to decide if they're quantitative or qualitative. All right, so if you ask people a survey their favorite music genre, all right, so mine is probably a mix between 80s rock and early 2000s pop music. I know those are really weird, different things. So I will tell you, if you guys watch Gilmore Girls, like the soundtrack in Gilmore Girls is like what I listened to in high school. It's my favorite. So favorite music genre has nothing to do with a number. That is qualitative. All right. The number of students taking French. All right. You see the word number of students taking French. Is this a count of something? So if I take the number of students taking French at Sullivan, compare it to the number of students taking French at North Central, take that compared to the number of students taking French at Northview, those numbers mean something. They are measuring an amount. This is quantitative. All right, now jersey numbers for sports. All right, they are numbers, but do they have a significance? If somebody has the number 22, are they better than someone that has the number 7? No, those are just categories, just to show a difference between players, but they don't give any value to their number. Has no value to their like ability to play. This is qualitative. All right, the cost of CDs. Cost is a measurement. Money is a measurement, and that is quantitative. All right, eye color. Blue, green, hazel, brown. Lots of eye colors, has nothing to do with a number. This is qualitative. And times from a 5K, we are measuring time in minutes, seconds, things like that. So that is quantitative. So that is the first thing that we are going to go through. You want to be able to tell me the type of data that you are collecting from someone. Now, this data can either be univariate or bivariate. And I hope you guys know from English that uni means one, bi is a prefix that means two. So a description is data that collects one variable, one thing. All right, bivariate is data that collects two variables. All right, so if you're measuring one thing, that'd be like the cost of the CDs. You know, so I bet you guys don't even own a CD. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. If you guys really want to know how old I am, this summer before I went to college, I bought the very first iPod, and it was pink. And I was super excited. I thought it was really cool. Now, bivariate data, this is where we're collecting two things. So, I'm going to say, whenever you're going to the doctor's office, the very first thing they do, height and weight. Height and weight. And so, if you look, I don't know if they still do this, but like football rosters used to have the players' height and weight. Now, I don't know if they do that. But they at least do height. But if you're measuring two things, that is bivariate. So if you look at this first example, height and weight of students, that would be bivariate. All right, the cost of internet from 7 providers. So if you are shopping for internet and you contact everybody, you contact Joink, you contact Xfinity, you contact Frontier, you contact all these other places that provide internet, and you're collecting the cost, you are only collecting one thing from those people. That is the one thing, even though you're getting it from 7 people, that's actually your sample, which we'll get to in just a second. But what we are collecting from that group is cost of their internet, and that is only one thing, that is univariate. Now, in a group, it's very hard to collect information from every person in the world or the country or the state. And so, a lot of the times, whenever someone runs a study, they get a sample, they get a small group. The population is an entire group that a sample is collecting data about. So, if you wanted to collect some data about high school students in the United States, it might be really hard to collect data from every single high school student in the United States, but maybe you could collect data from multiple schools in the area and maybe include big schools, smaller schools, private schools, public schools, to where you get a wide variety of people, but not necessarily you don't want to just sample one type of school because it may be the data you're collecting is slightly biased. Like, our school probably has more knowledge of agriculture than the entire, than the entire country. So we wouldn't want to ask our kids about their knowledge of agriculture and then be like, oh, everyone in the United States thinks this. No, that's not the case, because we're an agriculture-driven area where if you started to ask kids, even in Terre Haute, they're probably not going to have as much knowledge as we do, just because we're from a smaller farm-based community. Those are just some things. So the population is an entire group that you want to collect data about, but the sample is the smaller group that participates in the survey. I can't spell today. Survey or study to represent the population. And then whenever you are doing sampling, you always want to make sure that you have a wide variety and you have a good sample of people. You don't want to sample everybody that are identical. You want it to be a wide variety. So if you are doing a random sample, this just means that you are essentially forming a group with a random method to choose your sample. All right, so one way to do this is to assign people random numbers, and then you just pick. Or you draw names out of a hat. That would be a perfect draw names out of a hat. All right, a systematic approach means that you have some sort of method that you are going to pick. You got a system. You're going to pick, you have a system or method to select your group. And in a systematic approach, that means that you know your overall population, and let's just say I'm going to sample, let's see, like every 10th person I see at Walmart about this certain thing that I'm concerned about. So our example here is you're going to select every 10th or every 5th or however, whatever number you want to choose. All right, so you are going to answer some questions every 10th person. And then stratified, a word that comes from this is strata, which means that you're going to take a selection, a small group. And this means that you take a small group to represent. All right, so an example would be if you wanted to do a survey and you want to make sure that the entire student body gets represented, and let's just say that instead of answering, or you could do it by grade, but sometimes like a certain grade might have a bias. So you want to make sure that you have a group that has all 4 grades for the school. So an example of doing this would be to survey everyone in C lunch about topics at the school. And then you would have a representation of all grade levels, probably some different academic levels, just because the lunch schedule isn't built based on certain types of teachers. My lunch hour, I have a couple of math teachers, a couple science teachers. Mr. Cross is on my lunch. So with lunch, it's not necessarily based on a certain content area or a certain academic level. It's just a little mix. So I think that might be a good way. A strata is just like a small subgroup, but it has a little bit of everybody in it. All right, so if we want to choose these samples, what type are we looking at on example A? It says you want to find out if students enjoyed the SHS homecoming dance. I'm so sorry you guys have not had one of those. This makes me sad. I made these notes like a long time ago, like 6 years ago. And yeah, that's just really strange that homecoming dances like haven't happened. So you want to find out if the students enjoyed the homecoming dance. So you're going to go up to the mall and interview every 10th teenager that you see at the mall. First of all, what sampling method are you using? So we're talking about every 10th teenager. So what one is that? It goes with systematic. Now, I do want to ask, is this a good sample? If I want to know stuff about the SHS homecoming dance, do you think asking people at the mall would be a good choice? Say whenever I go to the mall, I see all kinds of letter jackets, but not always a Sullivan letter jacket. I would say this probably isn't a good sample because not all teenagers at the mall go to SHS. Now, if I wanted to find something about the homecoming dance, maybe ask every 10th person that walks into the Commons in the morning and say, hey, did you have fun at the dance? And they are either going to say, yes, I did, no, I didn't, or I didn't go. And then you could just kind of keep track. And you could do that until you have enough. And typically we always like to say at least 30, 50 is better, but we always like to have a good number of responses. You don't want to just take the first person's answer and be like, first person loved it, everybody had a great time. Maybe only that person had a great time. So you do have to ask more than just one person. Now for the second example, it says you revise your plan and interview all students leaving the school wearing purple and gold on a Friday. Will this plan give you a good example, a good sample, and explain? All right, so what kind of method is this? If I'm just saying I'm only going to ask the people wearing purple and gold on a Friday, I'm not asking anybody wearing red, I'm not asking anybody wearing blue. This method here, it's not random. There's a rhyme or a reason. It's not necessarily systematic because you're not asking like a certain number of people. You're just asking everybody. People wearing purple and gold, that's a group of people. This one's stratified. Now, do you think this is a good plan? I definitely think it's better because we are asking people at the school. But this is something that someone mentioned to me a long time ago, and it's kind of stuck with me. Do you think this is a good sample? And I'll say it's better, but what type of people tend to wear purple and gold on Fridays? Anybody? I know you guys can't answer me right now because I'm recording, but just think about this. Who wears purple and gold on Fridays? From what I can see, cheerleaders, arrowettes, football players, basketball players, softball players tend to wear purple and gold on game days. Those people are usually involved in student activities. So if they're probably planning those activities, good chances are they're going to have a good time. Um, but there are other people that attend dances that aren't essentially the planners or the super involved students. Everybody goes to the homecoming dances, but this group doesn't represent each person at SHS. I'm gonna say I would maybe recommend doing a lunch hour where you get a little bit of everybody, or maybe asking certain act teachers, maybe like get 2 freshman act teachers, 2 sophomore act teachers, 2 juniors and 2 seniors, and go into their classes and ask, where you're getting a wide variety of people because your act classes are totally random. I'm sure you guys have seen your act roster. You get a wide variety of students with different interests, and so that might give you a better representation. And then last but not least, whenever you guys are doing a survey, you want to make sure that it isn't biased. You don't want to word your questions or create your group in a way that makes it look or makes it to where they're going to answer a certain way because they feel pressured or persuaded in a certain way. So for these examples, it can contain a substance. It could be true, it may not be true, but it definitely influences the opinion or the way people answer. So the first one says, do you prefer exciting action movies or boring documentaries? All right, so first of all, I don't think this is true. I actually like watching documentaries. I think that they're interesting to learn about people and how things are made. I don't know. I don't think they're boring. Action movies sometimes to me are boring. I got drugged to Mortal Kombat a couple Saturdays ago. Probably the least favorite movie I've ever watched. It was just not it was kind of bad. Um, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but if you really like that, but I just personally, the Mortal Kombat movie was not my jam. So on this one, it definitely does contain bias. All right, and the words in there that make it like this, the words exciting. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hang on, let's erase that. I'm trying to draw with my mouse. I gotta get my stylus out. All right, the word exciting. The word exciting. And the word boring. If I took those words out, it probably be, do you prefer action movies or documentaries? Done. No bias there. But just adding those adjectives in to describe them kind of influences your opinion a little bit. Because if you've said that, no one's going to say, oh, I like the boring movies. No, but you like action movies or documentaries, and then you just have a word to describe it. All right, on the second one, it says, since global warming is a big problem, do you support government funding on global warming studies? Yeah, definitely contains some bias. All right, yes, it contains bias. And the whole first part of this should just be taken out. Since this, do you support? No, you just say, do you support government funding on global warming studies? That takes out the opinion part of it. And the last one, where do you like to vacation? Is there anything in there influencing your decision at all? I mean, you could answer that in any way, shape, or form. This one does not contain bias. That one's a good question. You know, say my personal favorites so far that I've vacationed to. Let me see. Oh man. Boulder, Colorado was beautiful. That was a good one. I really loved Savannah, Georgia when I went for Beta National Convention a few years ago. And I got to venture out. I drove, so I got to venture out and do some stuff with my girls before the students got there and after the students got there. So I really enjoyed Savannah. And my favorite place to go on the beach, I personally like Panama City. I've been going there since I was 8. And so that's one of my favorite places to go. And I know this is really sad. I'm recording this, and my mom is getting ready tonight to leave to go to Panama City without me. My brother's taking her. So those are my favorite places. And then I've also been to the Dominican Republic, which is gorgeous. Turks and Caicos is gorgeous. Jamaica's gorgeous. Um, I've been to a lot of islands in the Caribbean, which I enjoy, and I'm ready to start traveling again. So, whenever you guys are going to be able to do an assignment tomorrow, bring these papers in filled out. Start looking at those. You will have this as a guide to go through your assignment tomorrow. So, on your assignment, you are going to go through the different types. You will get to go through and decide if it is quantitative or qualitative data. Does it contain numbers or not when you're collecting those? And then going through the univariate and bivariate, how many things are you collecting from the people? What's the population, the big group, or the sample size, the small group that represents it? And then how you're choosing the sample and if it contains bias. So there's a little bit of everything. And then hopefully, if we have some time at the end of the year, I will give you guys an opportunity to create a survey question that you guys will get to pick your way of doing a sample. You will make sure that your question doesn't contain bias, and you'll collect your data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. And then I will show you guys how to take those results and make them into nice, pretty graphs, because that's my favorite thing to do. I like graphing. So if you have any questions at all over this material, you can ask those first thing before we start our assignment on Thursday. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I can't wait to see you all tomorrow.